everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Pickin' and Puttin'. Dr. Z here from the corporate Outer Banks Studios in Morehead City, North Carolina, and Liberty Bill reporting from the South Charlotte studios of Edwards Central. Hey, Bill, how you doing, baby?
Yeah, it's real quiet over here. I was able to use the kitchen tonight to record the podcast. We don't have a 3-year-old running around here. So enjoying a little peace and quiet.
I think he's running around with me, but hey, frozen pizza or Chinese is really good, man.
Yeah, frozen pizza tonight, baby. Here we go.
Okay. Well, so, hey, man, if you got any shout out, well, just for everybody out there, I just want you to know that this week's episode is called Hoosiers for obvious reasons. And I do have some trivia questions and all that stuff, but we'll go back to the movie and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
So, Bill, you got some shout outs?
And the Hoosiers actually play Wyoming tonight in the play-in game, but I'm going to give a shout out to the only Power 5 school to have the men's and women's teams win their conference tournament. That is the Iowa Hawkeyes. And Jordan Bohannon, who hit that big bank shot. Is that
guy awesome or what?
So he's been at Iowa. This is his 7th year. He's kind of like the Tommy boy. He's not even taking classes.
Well, and he was one of the for 44, so it's no different.
And Jordan was one of those guys that was real outspoken about name, image, and likeness and how athletes had to get compensated. So I know a lot of the other schools, a lot of the fans out there like to be a hater on Jordan, but I respect Jordan. And what it comes down to is, wouldn't you do the same damn thing? Wouldn't you stay in school as long as you could and keep chasing? Yeah. Iowa hasn't been to the Sweet 16 since 1999. If they can get it done, they might build a statue for Jordan Bohannon. So shout out to the Hawkeyes, men's and women's.
Yeah, and isn't he fun to watch? I mean, you know, these guys who can shoot the threes, and well, I told you that back last fall. Didn't Iowa whoop North Carolina's butt?
Yeah, that was last year, the COVID year.
Yeah, it was all on him.
J-Bo.
Oh man, yeah. Well, you know, if you can stay in college long enough, you can achieve a hell of a lot, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to the NBA. He's making money.
Well, I got a couple shout outs. Well, he was right up there at the top of the list. But that Tournament Players Championship, golf, if you don't go with Arizona and Phoenix and Jacksonville and the stadium course and take this to the next level where you take a hole and make it was so riveting. And the weather, weather.
17 you're talking about, right?
Oh, 17 and 18. And God, Brandel Chambly was defending. He said, oh, the design's bad. I'm going, no, it's not. Every golfer who plays golf wants to see these guys eat dirt.
Yep.
And what was wrong was seeing them hit shanks and everything else on 17, because that's what we do. So get over it, guys. I mean, the winner made $3.6 million. So get over it. The last place guy in the field made $50,000. So you think he's going to get, love from us? Well, anyways, I want to say a shout out to Cam Smith.
Yeah.
That kid, his mom and his sister got there.
And he hadn't seen them since the pandemic started, right? So he was just happy to see them. And then he goes out and wins the biggest prize of the whole season. And
that man putted the lights out. And here's the other thing. You and I got to work on it, but that mullet, man. He's great. The guy from hey, are you 40? I'm 40. Well, that's the only guy who can wear a mullet besides him.
Shout out to Mike Gundy.
Oh, yeah. Gundy. Well, I mean, that's awesome. And the other shout out I had was Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Who can retire and unretire? The son of a bitch who bought that ball that he made his last touchdown with. I'm sorry for you, buddy, but it's still a good ball, but whatever.
Well, and Tom Brady's company, TB12, is going to make a documentary about those 40 days and 40 nights where he was briefly retired before he came back.
You and I need to get Giselle as a guest. Hey,
Yeah.
talk to me about that month of reprieve where he actually stayed around the house and cut grass. Nah, ain't happening. So. Well, where do you want to take off with? You want to take off with the basketball?
Yeah, I will say I'm happy that Tom Brady is back. I mean, I'm not like a fan of his or anything, but I just enjoy greatness. And I kind of missed him down the stretch of the playoffs. So I am excited that Tom Brady, the Bears aren't going to win the Super Bowl next year anyway. So why not watch Tom Brady for one more year? It's amazing that he's still doing it at this age.
Yeah, and don't get me off on all this stuff because we live in the Carolinas, and that's a whole nother issue. North Carolina's owner, the Carolina Panther owner, is willing to trade the world to get the quarterback from Houston, and I'm sorry, I don't care what a talent the guy is or whatever. I think that's a bad move by any team at this point in time, but that's the NFL, so whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but you know what they do? The NFL took it and they make their product 12 months a year, and that's okay. And baseball, baseball's back. We'll get into baseball. But for this month, it's Hoosiers. So what do you think about the basketball tournament? I mean, you talk about wide open. This is the wide open year, baby.
It is. And I was thrilled to see Iowa's draw. The teams that scare the hell out of me are Gonzaga, Arizona, Kentucky, Tennessee. You mentioned previously Texas Tech. That's a scary team. UCLA, Kentucky. All these teams are in a different bracket from Iowa. And also, if Iowa can get through that first weekend for the first time since 1999, they'll be playing in the United Center in Chicago. And I can assure you, even though they'll be playing Kansas, that will be a home game for Iowa. That place will be rocking.
Hey, for you listeners out there, you didn't know, but Bill roots for Iowa.
But I was extremely disappointed because I talked about it last week. South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits. If they upset Providence in the first round, Iowa's going to have to play South Dakota State. And did you know South Dakota State is only a 2-point underdog to Providence? That is the smallest point spread for a 13 seed in the history of the NCAA tournament. South Dakota State is for real.
But it is so cool because, like, this year, I mean, North Carolina plays Shaka Khan. I mean, come on, Shaka Smart, Shaka Virginia, Shaka Texas, Shaka Milwaukee. He's going to Shaka you. That's the problem.
That's going to be a good game.
And I'm scared of playing Shaka. I love him as a coach and all that. And the deal is that I'm so excited about is, I mean, I know I'm wearing this hat, but good golly, the Gobblers of Virginia Tech got me excited. That's how it goes. You go into the tournament with some team on a hot streak. Tennessee, Virginia Tech. I do my brackets, and I'm picking Gonzaga, and I'm picking, I've seen enough of the ACC to know I'm not sold. I think Duke is not going to be they're not Duke.
I heard something really interesting about Duke. David Teal is probably the longest active sports writer that really covers ACC basketball. And he was at the front row at the ACC tournament. And he said in all of his years, he's covered the ACC for like 40 years. He's a Hall of Famer in Virginia. He's never seen a Duke team look so scared and look like they had so much pressure and they just aren't having fun. And that's thanks to Coach K's self-indulging victory lap. This is a very young team. And frankly, it's not fair to these players to have Coach K's legacy on their back. I wouldn't be surprised if Davidson knocks them out in the second round.
Well, it was the best thing that ever happened in North Carolina that they lost, and then Duke lost again, because I will tell you as a Chapel Hill graduate, I'm an Ohio Buckeye guy, but as a Chapel Hill graduate, I watched that and I said, you know what? I told my wife before that game, and I probably told you, I said, if North Carolina beats Duke in Durham, for those kids, that's the equivalent of a Michael Jordan hitting the shot against Georgetown. That they'll be my age, I'll be dead, dirt in my head and whatever. But for the rest of their lives, they can say, hey, we beat the greatest coach of all time at that time on his last game on his home court. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
And
That's nothing. I mean, he's a great achieving coach, but it's an amazing thing. Yeah, I agree with you. Because here's another thing for you folks out there. If you don't know Coach McKillop at Davidson,
Bobby McKillop.
Oh my God. You go back to Lefty Drizel and they set the pace. And then I'm blanking on his name. God, he was the head coach at Virginia, at Davidson, the athletic director at Virginia. I apologize. I've blanked, but that's a great basketball school. And they, I think they can beat them. I really do.
Oh, Lefty Drizel?
No, Lefty Drizel was a coach. He went on to Maryland. No. This gentleman coached Ralph Sampson, and he was then the athletic director and coach at Virginia. But he came back to be the AD at Davidson. Golly, sorry. Send me an email, you Davidson grads.
Yeah,
because
please.
Bill's doing his fastest search there, and he can't come up with it. But oh man, okay.
Bobby McKillop's been there since 1989.
Yeah, and he's a New York boy, so he came there and he did a great job. Well, anyways, it's really fun. I really get excited about Dayton again. I mean, playing in Dayton. And as you analyze the conferences this year, you would have said the SEC and the Big Ten were the strength. But don't be surprised if all of a sudden you got a Final Four with Texas Tech and, who knows what. I
could see UCLA making another run.
Yeah. Or St. Mary's. Everybody blows off St. Mary's. They play in the WAC or WCC or whatever the hell it is.
The WCC, yep.
And they always beat Gonzaga once. And then they go to neutral court and they lose. But then they're in the tournament and they're all playing on neutral court. So, Terry Holland.
Terry Holland.
I love you, baby. Shoot me an email. Blow my ass off because sorry for the language. But Terry Holland, he was an awesome coach, awesome AD, Virginia, awesome person. So,
played at Davidson.
Oh yeah, and
he's actually he's an emeritus AD at East Carolina right now.
Yeah, well, I'm only an hour and a half from there, so sorry, Pirate.
Yar!
Hey, by the way, that's a shout out for Harold Varner III.
Yeah,
he's the best Pirate golfer ever. I was rooting for him to win the Players Championship. He's a member of Quail Hollow Club in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's from Gastonia and Moses Parents Grass. Good for you, Harold. We love you, baby.
HV3.
HV3. He's an awesome dude. Well, I don't know. Okay, so we're moving on from the Hoosier basketball. Tell me a little bit about how you feeling about the baseball now that they finally blew all that stuff up.
In the end, I don't think anyone will really remember that they had this lockout because they're going to play 162 full games. I like that they made some progressive changes to the game that the players really pushed for, encouraging teams to spend more money. Sounds like we are going to get a pitch clock next year, keep things moving along. So all in all, I'm pleased. They did expand the playoffs, which in general, I'm not in favor of. Why the hell do you play 162 games if you're going to have 12 teams make the playoffs? But I kind of like what they did where they're rewarding like the number one team that has the best record in the league by getting a bye. So in the end, I'm pleased with how it all worked out. I would just like to see my team, the Cubs, spend a little bit of money. They certainly have it. They were rumored to try to buy Chelsea soccer team, which is up for sale because their owner is one of the Russian oligarchs. So he's going to have to lose that team. But the White Sox, actually, a shout out to them. They have a top 5 payroll.
I'm trying to buy his vote, by the way, but I just don't
yeah.
I'm missing on the money.
The White Sox have a top 5 payroll. It's by far the highest they've had relative to the rest of the league and Jerry Reinsdorf's tenure as an owner. So shout out to the White Sox. They're going for it. It's a fun team to watch. One of the things that for me and being in sports media, I would say help this evolution. I am a fair weather fan and I'm proud of it. I'm not going to spend my time or money on a product that's not good. And that applies to the Chicago Cubs this year. The White Sox are good. They're fun. So I'm prioritizing. I'm really excited to watch as many White Sox games as I can. And when I get to Chicago this summer, it'll be to go to a White Sox game, not a Cubs game. So I am excited to watch the White Sox, and this might be their year.
What happened to Freddie Freeman?
He's still out there. The Braves traded for Matt Olson, who's an upgrade. He's younger. He's a better defensive player. Freddie Freeman's still out there. Chris Bryant, former NL MVP, former Cub, is still out there. So there's still plenty of money to be spent, which, to your point earlier, the NFL free agency hasn't even officially opened, yet we have all these transactions and they've taken over the conversation. Major League Baseball, they really need to speed up the free agency, because wouldn't it be great if they had all the signings done by New Year's Day and they filled that gap in the calendar, but instead they're just dragging it out. So still plenty of big time free agents out there.
Yeah, I really think baseball's got a, as I've said before, I think soccer is on this transition. I know all you folks out there are sports guys, you're going, soccer, whatever. But I really feel like with the youth of America and stuff, baseball is missing an opportunity. I think they need to go back to Chicago Cubs baseball. And I'm living in North Carolina, but I'm saying go back to where you go. We're going to have some afternoon games. We're going to play some playoff games at 4 p.m.
Yep.
I mean, they really need to go back, and maybe they play 140 games.
Well, it's
still have all these playoff games. I mean, the NBA's figured this out a little bit, I think.
The NBA's I think all these leagues suffer from the same issue. They're more worried about their earnings next quarter, next 6 months, next year, and they're not investing in 10, 20 years down the line. The NBA's biggest problem is people don't watch games. Like, young people watch highlights on social media, right, but their TV ratings are in the tank. Major League Baseball's problem is that it's become a regionalized sport. So if you live in a market where there's a team, where there's history and your parents, Chicago, you watch, but with everything else, soccer, you mentioned, great example. That's on TV now. That's taking a slice of the pie. Everything's taking a slice of the pie. So baseball's no longer in the national conversation. The NFL is able to sustain itself because it's once a week. It's got that window of time. Fantasy football, I mean, one of the smartest things I ever did was getting my wife into fantasy football.
Yeah, betting.
So then it gives me an excuse. She's cool with it every Sunday to watch football all day for 18 weeks.
But you know what? That's a whole nother subject, because I really, this example that they've made of the Atlanta wide receiver.
Yeah. Calvin Ridley.
Everybody's going, well, he's just a receiver. I don't have a problem, because he was off. He was going to be off the year, and he was doing this stuff. And but it's good enough for the goose. It's good enough for the gander, where they say, okay, you can bet on the NFL. Oh, no, you're a player. Well, hey, I'm sorry. Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame and suck whatever.
Yep. Well, and you know what scares me about that? Tom Brady, real life example. When he retired, the odds for Tampa Bay to win the Super Bowl went down. What if he put a bunch of money on that, and knowing he was not actually going to retire? Yeah.
See,
that's the type of stuff that is totally out of control. Like Adam Schefter, who reports all the news. He knows about transactions before the public knows it. He's allowed to gamble. He literally is partnering with gambling companies. They have not reined this stuff in, and it's going to cause problems.
And here's yes. And I'm old enough, got the right hair and stuff. I will tell you that within this next 5-year period, the NFL, baseball, some major, I mean, they've had it here's the one who's had it kind of on the outskirts is tennis. Because they had guys throw matches, or so they were reported. It's coming. How can you not? I mean, it may come in golf. I mean, the guy who won the tournament this weekend made $3.6 million. What's to say he comes to 17? They say, okay, well, if you hit it in the water, then you'll come in third, but we'll give you $5 million on the side if you just shank it. Hey, that's and they promote the betting now. And now that it used to be, it was only Las Vegas and then New Jersey, and now it's worldwide. And
cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, cat's out of the bag. So you can't go back and change that. So I don't know. We'll just wait and see. I hope it stays that way. But for sports like golf, tennis, solo sports, it's a big deal. But I still think, here's my prediction for you folks out there. It's whatever the hell it is, 2022 and 2027. I will say in the United States of America, soccer will have bypassed baseball. Come back and quote me on that. But
in terms of what? Revenue?
Well, I mean in the overall market. I'm talking about in terms of sales.
TV viewership.
I'm not just talking baseball. I'm talking football, everything. I think soccer is finally, because in the rest of the world, now I'm not going to say it's going to be lacrosse or rugby or, something like that, which played in the rest of the world. But I do believe that worldwide football is going to catch up with the United States finally. And we're all going to be, because the United States has become a melting pot. And so you and I love baseball and you and I love NFL football, but good golly, 40% of the people who live up the street, they grew up with soccer.
Yep. If you're saying soccer in general, I could buy that.
Well,
if you're including the Premier League, La Liga, World Cup, like all that stuff. The MLS has a long, long way to go. And I'm not saying that to be critical. It's actually a compliment to them. In stark contrast to what I said earlier about how those other leagues don't seem to care about investing in the long-term sport. If you remember when MLS first started, they were short-term focused. They were signing over-the-hill guys, big names, just trying to get people out in the crowd. Now they're literally betting like Beckham. Now they're investing in the communities. They're having academies. They know that they're not going to win the fans overnight, but they know in 20, 30 years, when I'm looking at retirement, when my son's coming up in the world, when he's having a son or a daughter, then at that point, the MLS will win and might be the biggest league in this country. And I applaud them for taking the long-term route. But just a little perspective, on a Sunday evening, right now, an MLS game gets about 180,000 people to watch, and a baseball game gets about 2 million. They have a long way to go. I'm not arguing with you, but I just feel like we're at the precipice, because you can feel it. I can feel it. I have said, and I'm 70, I have said for 20 years that as soon as the United States gets a Michael Jordan of soccer, and we're right there. We've got the kids now, but they go over and play in the, UEFA or the British or whatever. And we are starting to see MLS guys graduate to those leagues, which is a good thing. We're starting to develop the talent. Well, Charlotte even has a kid that's from locally that's 18 that's playing for the MLS team. So cool. And they're in the right markets. They're in Charlotte. They're in Nashville. They're in Atlanta. They're in Seattle. They're in Austin, Texas. They're in Columbus, Ohio. They're in the markets where people are moving. Young people are moving. People that come, immigrants come there for jobs, all that stuff. So it's going to happen. Yeah. In the beginning, it was always, okay, we have to be in,
Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Miami, and that's not true. The growth of soccer is to be Middle America, where that is.
Yep. That's going to be fun. And like I told you, I've never had a soccer team that I've felt an attachment to, but I do now. And sure enough, I've watched every single game to this point. And I'm going to continue watching. I'm going to get out to a game and keep going from there, just because I've never had a team that I felt attached to, and now I do, and that matters.
Okay, everybody. I've got this week's picking and putting trivia question, which Bill doesn't even know what I'm talking about.
Hey.
Do you have one?
No, I want to answer them correctly and pat myself on the back.
He may have this one, but I don't know, because I've thrown it around my household here at the world headquarters on the Outer Banks, and nobody knows. Okay, so here's my question for you folks out there. What is the basketball circumference?
Ooh.
You got to be within a quarter inch. I'll give you a quarter inch.
First of all, I need to remember what the hell's circumference is. That's the big
circle,
width,
baby.
or the big one around the
diameter.
The diameter is this one. The circumference
not the
is
radius.
This.
Not
okay.
Yeah.
And then are we talking NBA ball, men's NCAA?
I don't know. Come on, it's a basketball.
College, a FIBA ball, like the ones
about those 8-year-old balls they give the little kids that they can dunk on the 8-foot baskets. I'm talking about real basketball.
All right, I'm gonna say.
Don't cheat, because you're trying.
No, I'm not gonna. I'm really bad.
The answers here.
I'm real bad at conceptualizing space too. That's why I play in spread.
Just think about it. You got to test.
Yeah, I'm more of a spreadsheet guy, Google it guy. But I'm gonna say 18 inches.
Bigger.
24.
Bigger.
Wow. 36.
Smaller.
30.
Close.
28 and a half.
Huh?
28 and a half.
Oh, bigger.
29.
Bigger.
30 and a half.
Smaller.
30.
Smaller.
29 and a half.
There you go.
There it is.
See, I told you wouldn't.
No one's going to get that.
You have to kind of think about it. You go, now, they have smaller balls and stuff, but I think the NBA college is all standard. Yeah, 29 and a half. Isn't that crazy? That's one of those things you go, that's the old thing when we went back to Hoosiers, and you go to the movie and it's the greatest scene ever. And he takes them in the Hinkle Field House and they stand in the gym. And they're going to play the big school from Gary, Indiana from the region.
They call that the region.
You folks have to understand that in Indiana back in the day, there was no 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A. If you had 50 kids in the school, you had 1,000 kids, you all played. And that's what they had. That's what made Indiana basketball, Hoosier basketball so cool. So he walks in. Gene Hackman walks in, he goes to the goal, and he goes, well, look around here, boys. And they're all going, wow, And he goes, how far is it from here to there? And he goes, 10 feet. How high is the basket? 10 feet. It's the same as it was at home, boys. And they kicked butt. And that is
classic.
The best classic movie. And it was like it's a real team, and it was from the late 40s or early 50s. I can't remember, but God, great story.
The basketball sequences in that movie are by far the best in terms of filmmaking. It really looks like a basketball game. You got the redemption story with the drunk dad, assistant coach.
Yeah,
that movie has it all. It's a fan. For me, Blue Chips is still my favorite basketball movie of all time. Part of it maybe is nostalgia because I saw it in the theaters. But Hoosiers is right up there.
Well, I'm going to close it out with this, and Bill can follow up with anything I want. But I had to name our episode tonight Hoosiers because it's basketball, and it's March of Madness. So my question or my quote for the night is from James Naismith.
The doc.
James Naismith was, and my quote is: basketball really had its origins in Indiana, which remains the center of the sport. So for all you folks, Indiana, I'm from Ohio, he's from Illinois. I don't care where you're from. You got to love basketball. You got to love March. And Harold Varner, good job, baby. Bill, anything else you want to say? We'll see you next week.
No, I'll give you a John Wooden quote.
Oh, give me that. You
Champions never complain. They are too busy getting better.
There you go. Here's my thing on that. On my Mount Rushmore of basketball, and I'm a Carolina guy, and I grew up in Columbus, and I loved Ohio State. And when I was a little boy, there was a guy named Fred Taylor. They won the national basketball championship. John Havlicek. But on my Mount Rushmore, the guy is John Wooden. He was coach, teacher, father figure. He was everything. You can put, and then in all honesty, nothing against Coach K because I got this hat on, but I love Coach K and what he did. I got Coach K and Bobby Knight on an equal level, but I have Dean Smith above them for one reason, because Coach Smith he broke the color barrier in Chapel Hill. He brought in the first black athletes in the South. He broke the color barrier at the restaurants on Franklin Street. So he was an amazing guy.
He was a pioneer. He was way ahead of his time.
Yeah, but all those guys are great guys. So anyways, have a great time. Fill out your brackets. You're going to lose. Probably by the end of the weekend, you'll busted your brackets, but who cares? Have a good time. And we love you, Billy. We'll see you next week on Picking and Putting, folks. Oh, go Hawks. Go Tar Heels. We don't know, but who knows?
Go Jackrabbits.
Yeah. Go Davidson Wildcats. See you next week, baby. Have a nice week.